that seeks to ground ourselves in the history and culture of our people want to understand why Mr. Siaga take it upon himself to find these things so important when we take them for a joke, Maleng. And so we have looked at the place of Brookings, the place of revival, and the place of Jonkanu. And this evening we're looking at the place of kumina. And we're using kumina to help us understand how we feast on the heritage. When we eat, for example, bami and fish, we are in fact dining with the Tainos. You will not do that this evening because we're not give you no bami and fish. But what we have discovered is that food is a very important part of the Jamaican culture. You go to your mother's yard and you cry for your wife throw you out or your husband abuse you. Whichever gender it is, you sit down and you talk to your mother for 3 hours. And at the end of the 3 hours, you are washed in tears and your mother says, "You want a little food?" Who identifies with that? You want something to eat? And then she finished with you. Food is a very important part of ancestral veneration. So we want to understand what is this about. We have invited two people who are supposed to know. I was about to say two eminent scholars, but the colonial education in my head, I don't want to say two eminent scholars. Because when we say that, we disrecognize, I can make up that word? We disrecognize that all who we call eminent scholars go to a granny who can't read and write and say, "Tell me about this." And when them tell we write it down into some word called epistemology, ontological, and we ourselves can't even pronounce it. And the people who give us the information might not recognize it in the way we have reproduced it, but we know how it goes. So Dr. Kurt Henry is the newly minted executive director of the African Caribbean Institute of Jamaica, which we should know is the oldest institution of its kind in the Western Hemisphere that collect and document the African heritage of the people who then traffic so many years ago. You're supposed to clap for that. Dr. Henry is not just a scholar, he is a revival practitioner. And don't ask me nothing about how a revival is going to talk about kumina. Because when the Catholics talk about Presbyterianism, we don't ask them that. We just know say the same Bible. And then we have Cheryl Ryman. Cheryl Ryman used to dance with the NDTC. How many of you used to watch Royal Palm? Put up your hand and clap Cheryl Ryman. And she is a former research fellow with the ACIJ. That's all I think I can say, because you are now in the kumina yard. And so you are going to have a rare witness of the practitioners, the Port Morant Kumina group, getting ready. So you're going to see them getting ready. Them already get permission for you to see them getting ready, because usually we would not be permitted to see that. So them going to get ready. I don't know what them going to do. But when them feel like, say, it's time for somebody to talk, if we had gone to St. Thomas and them are going to read the Bible, they would have picked somebody out of the audience and give you a chapter to read. And so we have cast, because we're staging it, the speakers in the role of somebody in the audience. So when they are ready for somebody to read the scriptures, they will escort first Dr. Henry, and Dr. Henry will do his thing. And when they are ready for somebody to read another scriptures, they will escort Cheryl, and Cheryl will do her thing. They will decide if they manage the Q&A or if they want me to handle the Q&A, and they have not yet told me that. So I will just be led by them. And so I had asked our multimedia team not to play no music because it might run counter to what they want to do. So they are going to take over. The only thing I will say, Adoma, you're going to do the quali. You're going to do the quali. All right, so they're going to be getting ready. And there is a song that when them do that song, them ready to get your attention, and they will indicate. Yes, I said that. Yes, she's reminding me that they will take question and answer when them ready to take question and answer. Yes, so it's over to you to prepare yourself.
can't get that cardless, Mike. Okay. No de la, no de la, no de la, no bungalow, no bungalow, no. No de la, no de la, no de la, oh, Bagaman. Hey man, ganja male, yeto male, ganga male, Bagaman, oh, Bagaman. Oh no, Bangamano, 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 Bangamaho, Bangaman, Bangamaho, Bangamaho, Bangaman. Yamale, Yamamale, Ganga Kodia, Mama Male, Yatunganga, Ganga Yato, Bakawa, Bangamale, Mamale, oh Yatamale, no Bangala, Bangamaho, Bangamalenketo, oh Mamale, Yamamale, Ganga Kodia. Good morning, oh. Good morning, oh, Malembe Yato. Morning, oh, me tell you. Yeah, we can't get by Yannick Yala. Good morning, oh. Morning, oh, me nation. Yeah, good morning, Yato Yato. Morning, oh, Bongo nation. Yeah, we holla one Malem. Holla one Malembe. Yeah, good morning, bongo girl. Morning, oh. Yabo. Morning, oh, my lamb. Yabo. Yeah, my lamb, yeto, yeto. My lamb, yeto. Put on top. Morning, oh, my nation. Yeah, we going up around St. Thomas Road. Maleket, yeah, yeto, Malek, Mane, no. Yeah, go morning, Yadwana. Mane, no, Malek. Yeah, can't talk. Kang apa suka? Mane no bongo nation. Yeah, maleme yeto. Haha. Ya maleken. Yeto. Yeto mumbaka. Mane no. Why? Gini why? Me maleme yeto. I love. Can't we are beg you? Ganga we are beg you. Oh, Nana we are beg you. Beg you we are beg you. Oh, can't me I beg. Can't me I beg you. Can't me I beg you. Beg you little lolo. Oh, yeto ba yeto. Yeto ba yeto. Oh, yeto ma leme. Oh, can't me I beg you. Oh, beg you me I beg you. Oh, beg me I beg you. Yeto me I beg you. I beg you little lolo. Oh, beg you little lolo. Beg you little. Ah, beg you little. Ah, little me I beg you. Oh, can't me I. Oh, me I beg you. Oh, me I beg you. Oh, can't me I beg you. Oh, can't me I beg. Oh, can't me I beg you. Oh, me I beg you. Oh, beg you, me I beg you. Oh, beg me I beg. Yeah, me I beg. Ah, can't me I. We are beg you. Oh, beg you, look along. We are beg you, look along. Oh, we are low. Oh, we are low. Well, I night beg you. Oh, beg you. Can't go, we are beg you. Oh, beg you, we are beg you. Oh, we are beg you. Oh, we are beg you. Oh, can't do, we are beg you. Oh, can't do, we are. Oh, we are beg you. We are beg you. Oh, beg you, we are. Oh, we are beg. Oh, beg you. We are. Oh, Yeah, like yeah.
But you know that but eh? No, this is more like a revival table, you know. This is not a typical, as I said, although well, it apparently pronounced to come out as Imogen, this Kennedy, coming group, so they no, I wonder if you can see
I can't hardly.
it is there. I don't know if I read my thing, because I don't have this.
Is it fine?
No, I did it in big enough print, I thought. It's at 16, 18. It's not fine print. So far. In this light I can read. Yeah, I can read. If this is the light I have, I can read too. I've learned. That's one of the things. You don't come to read nothing if you are not have 16 or 18. I bet you that look like about a 14 at the most. 14? Yes, yes. And double. I don't know when it comes to hard because it's what I understand the way to me. This hasn't years. This is a public. Actually, first donated it to this. I did an article on that.
It's underneath. You have to step down to the bit. Yoruba. It's a, and some of them are school and the home. That and down in that place. Some of them are spiritual. Not the Irish. When I look at it, when I look at it, they have been donated all the money to just put it on there. They are spiritual. I don't know why everybody else is fascinated. And somebody came from the you don't go you walk down. That's all.
So God me make the sorrows now.
In a very bad sense. Because I'm only put up. But they're spiritual things. Don't live. Well, let me tell you. No, it's not very nice to do. Because the Queenie was brought up on the other side of this island. So Queenie put the two together. But Queenie was a person that was like anything that had to do with African culture. This is the blessing of Rastafari. And she welcome. She welcome you. Okay? So now this is what her nice is teaching us. Her nice was learning from Queenie. But what happened is Queenie, her nice passed on what she thinks she knows. But that doesn't mean she knows because the language of Queenie spoke was not her. So when basketball and I showed her you have to go way back when she had
You need to keep all the things.
And I'll be feeding up a part.
I think around the area, around, you know, and because of
But you need proper life. I mean, you need proper life. I wonder about this.
I want to know right now, I want to know what I want to do.
Listen, I don't know. I just have to speak what I know. It may be contradicting everything. And that it is
The drum card you used to get over the people like over the block, around in a county cup like a road. And in the middle of the block, you put like that, and water. Because
Yeah, dan de mana layano. Whoa, come bielemo. Dielem, come bielemo. Whoa, come dia. Yeah, ganga, come dia. Whoa, come dia. Yeah, Pablo, you're the danga. Whoa, come bielemo. Whoa, ganga, come bielemo. Yeah, come. Diele, come dia. Whoa, come here. Yeah, dear Lord, come here. Balboga, you're like. Yeah, Balboga, you're dead and gone. Balboga, you're dead and gone. Whoa, come here, come. Yes, oh, come here. Yeah, Ganga, come here. Diele, come here. Yeah, Dande Manalaya. Whoa, come here. Yeah, Ganga, come here. Yes, oh, come here. Whoa, Palboga, Lalaya. Palboga, Lalaya. Diele, come here. Yes, oh, come. Yabo. Yeah, Ganga, yes, oh, come here. Oh, yeah, come here. Diele, come here. Oh, come here. Diele, come here. Oh, yeah, come. Yeah, Ganga, come here. Diele, come here. Oh, come here. Oh, yeah, come here. Yeah, Ganga, come here. Diele, come here. Oh, come here. Diele, come here. Yeah, Ganga, come here. Olane, come. Yeah, diele, come here. Yeah, come here. Yeah, Olane, come here. Yeah, Ganga, come here. Yeah, come. Yeah, come here. Diele, come here. Yeah, Olane, come here. Diele, come here. Yeah, Ganga, come here. Wabwaga, you get on gone. Yeah, Ganga, come here. Yeah, come. Yeah, Diele, come here. Oh, come here. Yeah, Ganga, come here. Diele, come here. Yeah, well, I'm not a come here, man. Oh, come here. Yeah, Diele, 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 come here. Yeah, Ganga, come here. Oh, come here. When Diele, come here, boy. Oh, come here. Yeah, Ganga, come here. Malem you talk, Malem can't. Malem can't talk. Malem. We holla one oh. We holla one in. We holla one Bongo Nation. We holla one oh. Yeah, you can't go down little road. Malem can't talk, Malem. Right to your talk, yeah, you can't go down Motown Road. All I want is gonna go. Malem. All I want is gonna go. Yeah, but. Oh, you can't go to Kingston Road, all I want is. Oh, what a cat, Malem. Yeah, you can't go to Kingston Road. Yeah, but. Yeah, you can't go to Motown Road. I want you. All I want Bongo Nation, we all want it. Yeah, but. All I want is to get out. Yeah, you can't go to John Road. Yeah, you can't go to John Road. All I want is. Yeah, we all I want Bongo Nation. All I want oh. Yeah, they are tough. Malem can't talk. All I want Bongo Nation. We all I want oh. Yeah, you can't go to Kingston Road. All I want oh. Malem to the ancestral. Oh, you can't go to Motown Road. Yeah, you're a queen, oh, you're a queen, oh. Yeah, you're a queen, oh, you're a queen. Yeah, the Galema Tangalanga, yeah. Jale matanga langa yo yere kwe. Yeah, yere kwe no yere no. No, you request. Jalama tangalanga ya yeri. Jalama tangalanga wo yeri. Never. You request, oh, you request. Vaya ya to. Yeah, you request, no. Galama tangalanga ya request. Jalama tangalanga ho yereke. Yabot ya yereke no yere. Ya yereke ho yere. Jalama tangalanga ya rekwe. Jalama tangalanga wo ya rekwe. Wo ya rekwe no ya rekwe na. Jalama tangalanga wo ya rekwe. Waganga. Yato kento mumbaka yawa yato male menganga. Yagaba before the ngande. Yeto male mengande ya. Yeto ganga. Ye mumbaka. Yeto, ye malembe, yeto malembe, ye kojo. yeto, ganga wala night. Mama, yeto ba yeto, kojo, kojo. Yepa malem, gande malem ya. Yeah, yeto malem wala night. Yeah, yeto gande wala night malem. Yeto malem ya wateka wala tingande. Yeah, mumba ayabaya yekento malem. Wow, yeah light, yeah malem. Yeah, yeto manuka wala teka wala tinganga. Yeto gande wala night. Yeah, mumba kamaleme wala night. Tanto, yeto maleme ya yeto bayeko. Yeah, mumba kamaleme wala night. Yeto madiele wala night. Yeah, yeto malem kodongade. Yeto ganga wala night. Yeto madiele wala night. Yeah, ganga, yeah malembe. Yeah, yeto madiele wala night. Ganga. Yeto kodongo wala night. Yeah, mumbaka malembe wala night. Ganga. Yeto madiele wala night. Yeto malembe wala night. Yeto, yeah, mumbaka. Yeto malembe yeto wala tuwa. Yeto ganga wala night. Yeah, mumbaka malembe wala ganga. Yeto ganga wala night. Yo. Did everybody condo?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Wow. Good evening, everyone.
Yeah.
I was told to begin, but sometimes you have to wait until the Spirit gives you way. Yes? All right. So, as Dr. Meeks introduced me earlier, my name is Kurt Henry, the director of the African Caribbean Institute of Jamaica, Jamaica Memory Bank. And I'm here this evening to talk to you about feasting on the heritage, the centrality of food in ancestral veneration. I am a revivalist by faith. And Dr. Meeks asked the question earlier, what does a revivalist know about kumina? But in African spirituality, there is no boundary. Yes, spirituality is boundaryless. And from time to time, we travel the cities and travel the spaces. I am also the godson of Queenie's godson. Right? So I grew up hearing about the importance of food in ancestral veneration. I came here with a script, but I cannot see it, one. And two, in the interest of time, I will just go on speaking about what I know. Now, ancestral veneration, as a child growing up in my native district in Spanish Town, I would always experience and witness feeding rituals. The first feeding ritual I witnessed was the feeding ritual of my great-grandmother, who was a revival leader. When she passed in 2024, I observed my aunt. 2004, right? I observed my aunt preparing a special meal for my great-grandmother, without salt, of course, and we'll get into why, no salt. And I would hear her say, "Here, Mama, this is your favorite meal." And she would leave that food uncovered on the refrigerator overnight. And this continued for about a week. Now, there was a barnyard also, which is a healing yard, in my community. And it was known as Mother Bev's barnyard. And Mother Bev would normally have feasts. Now, when, as a child, I would hear the kumina drums, and that was always a signal to say the feast will begin. Now, as a child, I was told not to go over Mother Bev's barnyard because whatever Mother Bev is doing is, in our context, demonic and satanic. But I found myself being pulled to the drums. When I hear the kumina drum, I could not resist it. And I also found myself, as a child, about 13 years old, climbing on a bucket and peeking through the little nail holes in Mother Bev's zinc fence. And one feature of that ritual stood out to me, and that was a table that was prepared, and on that table were various foods. And that table was a table that the ancestors would feed from. So that's Mother Bev barnyard. I would also notice in my community there were regular dance hall events. And having to go to the shop, I had to pass through these dance hall sessions. And I would notice certain dance hall patrons, before they drink the liquor, the white rum, they would pour some on the ground as a form of libation. And so too in Uncle George's rum bar, which was a few meters from my house. There you had men pouring alcohol on the ground. But the interesting thing, though, is that although my aunt practiced feeding ritual to my grandmother, although patrons in the dance hall and Rumbar practiced libation, these were the same people who were saying, don't go to Mother Bev's feast. And they're preparing for this talk, I started to think about the academics in the house. W.E.B. Du Bois' theory of double consciousness, in how we sometimes neglect the part of us or parts of us who would go too deep within African spirituality. It's okay if we observe it on the margins, but it becomes barbaric when we are drawn into these spiritual practices. So in my presentation, I will seek to problematize this concept of heritage. What does heritage mean? And I will read a little section here from my script. So in the words of a revival bishop, and I quote, "The ground is prepared, consecrated, and ready. The sacrifice is made. The drums are positioned, blessed, and ready to be symboled. The foods have been gathered, washed, blessed, and carefully arranged on the table. Pearls have been offered. The feast is ready," end quote. I will use the basis of Bishop Brown's words to ask the question, although the feast is ready, who will partake in the feast? Who will feast on the heritage that has been so graciously inherited, that we have so graciously inherited from our forefathers? As we have been invited here to feast on the heritage, and as you can see the table mounted, the simplest yet complex and troubling question is, whose heritage? We're all people of African descent here, but how many of us identify with what is happening here? That's the problem with heritage. It is therefore critical that I, of course, continue this lecture by problematizing the use of the term heritage, especially in a post-colonial context in which we operate, which has been for many years characterized by tension, difference, and struggle. I speak of an independent nation whose population, despite being profoundly African, is being guided by the motto, out of many, one people. Scholars such as Sonia Staninayo and Anthony Bogues have spent much time reflecting on the paradoxical nature of the Jamaican motto, claiming that although it is unifying, it is also divisive. Indeed, despite the unifying message behind the motto, it is limited in its attempt to represent Jamaica as a space of conflict and battle, occupied by people of cultural differences and contending histories. Therefore, any project by those of power to represent heritage must consider the historical sensibilities and conditions under which such oneness exists. Now, Anthony Bogues claimed that within Jamaica's history, the country has witnessed the emergence of two distinct forms of nationalism. One, an African-based nationalism that is anti-colonial and counter-hegemonic, and a brown nationalism that upholds European standards. This brown Creole nationalism was rooted in Western liberal thought, which was occupied with social order, refinement, and becoming civilized. But what is civilization anyway? What is being civilized anyway? Similarly, Cheryl Ryman writes about a case of schizophrenia among African Jamaicans that purports a kind of negative self-image driven by ignorance and exaggerated by sensationalist attitudes towards our African heritage. Olive Lewing states that anti-colonial policies caused Jamaicans not only to be ignorant of their African past, but also to despise the sounds, sights, and ideas that did not quite synchronize with those of the ruling class. The foundation, therefore, of ethics and morality as it relates to Jamaica's political, religious, and social life was guided by the British order. This, of course, caused the public perception of particular African traditional practices, such as ancestral veneration, to be considered devil worship, uncivilized, and barbaric. The heritage of Jamaica's African-based nationalism, of course, is kept alive by the veneration of our ancestors, practiced by groups such as the Maroons, the Revivalists, kumina practitioners, those of the Nago and the Etu communities. The challenge with heritage is that it allows us to deny aspects of our history that does not neatly fit in the expectations of what it means to be British. It affords us the privilege of being owners of parts of our identity that are less complicated and less challenged by society. Why practice ancestral veneration in Jamaica if you're going to be constantly questioned and badgered about what you're doing? So although the feast is ready, many African Jamaicans are still at a crossroads in finding meaning and identity in the food that has been prepared. Now, ancestral veneration. What is ancestral veneration? The importance of a tree is explained by ancestral veneration. And I want you for a minute to take your eyes off me and just observe your environment and look at the trees. Spiritually, in parts of West Africa and the East Africa, trees are believed to be the medium between spirits and men, the bridges between us and the ancestors. In the anatomy of a tree, there are the roots that are underground. We can't see them, but we know that they are there. The roots represent our ancestors who have passed. Then we have the tree trunk, which is you and me, the interlinking part between what we can see and what we cannot see, between the temporal world and the spiritual world. We, the trunk, are the present moment, and there are the branches reaching up in the sky, which is a representation of the future. And of course, the famous quote by Marcus Garvey, a people without knowledge of their history, origin, and culture is like a tree without. So therefore, our ancestors are the roots that continue to keep us anchored while we face these troublesome times in our lives. The ancestors are viewed as a real part of the living world and, of course, must be engaged to solicit their guidance, protection, blessings, and advice on matters affecting the living. Problems existing in this temporal world must be resolved at a spiritual level with the help of the ancestors, as these problems are not simply resolved by going to church and have faith. From the Day of the Dead celebration in Mexico, the offering of food, clothes, and furniture to the deceased by the Bengali Hindus in India, to certain festivals like the Chinese New Year and Hungry Ghost, to the carefully constructed shrines in Africa, and even the feeding of rum to the Loa in Voodoo. The sacred practice of ritual feeding plays a central role in the shaping of cultural identity, fostering a sense of belonging, and connecting present generations with the past. I was told by Dr. Meeks that I could break at certain intervals and the drummers would play, but I guess I will continue. Right, drummers? Good? All right. Now, we are going to talk about food But this is a photo of Queenie, Imogene Kennedy, and a photo of Edward Siaga at a yes, ma'am. Yes, important. And of course, I'll speak a little about the revival table and the importance of the revival table. Now, the revival table is a ritual dining table that is set and arranged with a multiplicity of items. And as you can see, center on this platform is a bears similarity to a revival table, yes? And it depends on the purpose or the theme of that particular ceremony. That would dictate what you put on the table. So on the table you would have the duck bread, which may be in the form of a cross, a dove, or a Bible. Unfortunately, you don't have that these days. You would have the croton, which is a signature plant that is used to mark burial sites of our ancestors. You would have alcoholic and carbonated beverages. You would have fruits, watermelons, bananas, grapes, and so on, grains, and importantly, medicinal or herbal plants would be on that table. Yes? Because a table setting is a spiritual atmosphere, and you never know what may take place. So you need all these various items for you to use whenever the Spirit asks for it. So a lot of times you see African traditional religions and you're wondering, why all of these paraphernalias? Yes? But when the Spirit is ready to move or to work, as we say, you never know what the Spirit may ask for. So it is important for you to have these things set aside. Now, tables may be in the form of a cross, or it may be circular, or you may have a high table, or what is called a low table. Now, the difference between the high table and the low table, the high table is mostly used for celebrations. Yes? You have a birthday, you're giving thanks for that. You have some event that you've overcome an illness, you assemble a high table. No, the lower table, as we revivalists would say, is a deeper form of the ritual, where the low table being on the ground is specifically there to communicate and connect with the ancestral realm. Yes? And you also have tables in the form of a cross, which we call a four-pole table, representing the four corners of the earth. Now, what you're looking at, before I get to this photo, there's a common song that I've heard journeying through feeding rituals. Entertain them, entertain them, entertain them because them a stranger. Entertain them, entertain them, entertain them because them a stranger. So the concept of entertainment is for you to, of course, entertain the Spirit. How does one entertain the Spirit? By wearing certain colors that you know a particular spirit likes. By assembling the table with certain foods that you know a particular spirit likes. By dancing and moving in particular motions that you know will evoke that spirit. Now, in invoking the Spirit, it is important for the Spirit to tarry within this space. Yes? And having these emblems will assist the Spirit in tarrying. Because when the Spirit tarries, of course, the Spirit would need food. So these foods would be offered to the spirit. Now, in feeding rituals, an important element is animal sacrifice. Or, in other words, blood sacrifice. Why is it important in feeding rituals? Now, there's a philosophy that when you slay an animal, that life is used to replenish and sustain the existence of your ancestor. And of course, the blood itself, being a life force, is also important in giving the ancestor its energy. Because just like human beings, when we are hungry, we get weak. So when the ancestors come, then you would have to feed them with particular things. Now, the blood is quite important. This is a photo that I took in Montego Bay at a revival feeding rituals. And that is why I said earlier that spirituality is boundaryless. So in certain feasts at revivalists host, we would engage kumina as that element or that part of our ancestral heritage, right? Now, what you're seeing happening in this photograph is a gentleman, and I'm careful of the term that I use, certain colonial terms such as possession, yes? But as the people in voodoo would say, that he's being mounted, yes? So this is a mounting scene. And what he's doing, he's using the blood of the goat that was slain earlier at sunrise to then mark his face. And of course, Olive Lewin talks about that in her book on the importance of blood and healing. An interesting thing that happened at this event was that women who were ailing started to dance in the blood of the goat that was slain. And there's a belief that the blood has healing properties to heal the body. And while the ancestor is feeding, that's an opportunity to get healing. Now, there are three main functions of a feast. One is for transmigration. Transmigration. A feast is held to guide the spirit of the deceased to the ancestral homeland, and it is also held to invoke the ancestors. The concept of death was understood by many enslaved Africans as the only way to escape the harsh realities of plantation life and return to the ancestors. Transmigration by death, therefore, became a resistance strategy to enslavement and colonization. A going home, send off, or freedom feast is held to facilitate transmigration, and it must be properly executed to allow the souls or the spirits of the deceased to go into, to transmigrate into freedom. Now, I think that some of us are familiar with the term tombing. Tombing, yes? And at that tombing ritual or tradition, what would normally happen is that a plate of food is placed on the grave, on or inside the grave. And of course, the belief is that the deceased person would partake of that food. The Etu ceremony, referred to as fortnight, which is performed 39 days after the death of a member of the community, is to assist the transition of the deceased into the spiritual realm. In funeral rites among revival, Maroon, and Kumina practitioners, the dead is sometimes buried with their favorite foods and other items to accompany them in the afterlife. And I can vividly recall that before my grandmother was buried, there was a kind of urgency to assemble all the things that she loved in this life, such as her turban, yes, her rod that she used while she was alive. And also, I recall various herbs and spices that she used, all of them being gathered and placed into her coffin. And of course, in the ancestral realm, she would make use of those particular items. The next function of a feast is to appease the ancestor. An angry ancestor could result in chaos, imbalance, disunity, and even death within the community. Therefore, a feast is held to appease the ancestor, and in other cases, to enter in a covenant with the ancestor. An agreement is made between ancestors and the living for various reasons such as healing, spiritual empowerment. And as we are in the context of Heritage Month, this is quite important: war and protection. Historically, blood sacrifice as a form of appeasement was used by enslaved and freed Africans as a means to invoke warrior ancestral spirits for the purposes of battle in their fight for freedom and justice. For example, there were oath-taking rituals using animal blood to invoke spirits of war, and this was, of course, presided over by Paul Bogle in the preparation for what would be described as the Morant Bay Rebellion, which began on the 11th of October, 1865. And Professor Hutton has also talked about the role of using blood to invoke warrior spirits as well in the Haitian Revolution. And that is one of the accounts one of the reasons why it is believed that the Haitian Revolution was in fact so successful, because you had the ancestors fighting with you. Finally, the last point. The other function of a feast is to strengthen community through ancestral veneration. A feast is a period within which heritage is celebrated and community is appreciated. Ritual food becomes an agent that is used to bring the living and the living dead together. And it's important that we use terms such as living dead, because there's a belief that although the ancestors have transitioned, they are still living among us. The revival feasting table, for instance, is used for the reinforcement of community and ancestral heritage by their ritual performances of nations. And in closing, what I will show you now are some photos of ancestral nations being venerated in revival. This that you're looking at is an African table within the revival ritual, feasting ritual. And on the African table, you would normally have foods prepared within the African tradition, foods such as fufu, the pig and the goat. But the method of preparation is normally through roasting, right, or baking. Then you have the Indian feast. And this is an Indian hut that you're looking at, and dedicated to the Indian ancestors are vegetables that the East Indians brought here when they were coming to Jamaica to work as contractual laborers. Importantly, you'll see an enamel basin with blood at the foot of the table, and that is out of feeding for the ancestors. Here you have a revival bishop with food specially prepared for the Indian ancestors, and on this plate you're looking at the roti and the steamed kalaloo, which are also Indian food. And finally, this is another photo of an Indian ceremony, and this lady is dancing with a basket of vegetables on her head, still representing the Indian ritual. And the idea is that while she's dancing, the spirit is then feasting and feeding from this basket. So of course, food is quite important and essential to ancestral veneration within communities and groups right across the island of Jamaica. Thank you.
Bring me half a walk and give me a Pick me up a walk, come give me up. Yeah, but I want to compound. Yeah, but I want to compound. I want to compound. Me up a walk, come give me up. Me up a walk, come give me. Yeah, but I want to come. Yeah, but I want to come. But I want to come. Me have a hug, come give me. Ah, me have a walk, come give me. I want to come. Yeah, I want to come. Yeah, but I want to come. Yeah, but I want to come. Yeah, come give me. Me have a walk, come give me. Yeah, but I want to come. I want to come down. Hey, but I want to come down. Hey, but I want to come down. Yeah, I walk. Yeah, I walk, come give me. I'm a lot of the beginning. Hey, but I want to come. Yeah, but I want to come down. Yeah, but I want to come down. I want to come down. Yeah, but walk, come give me. Yeah, but walk, come give me. Yeah, but I want to come. Yeah, but I want to come. Hey, but I want to come down. Hey, but I want to come down. Me have a walk, come give me. Me have a walk, come give me. Hey, but I want to come down. 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 Me have a walk, come. Me have a walk, come give me. Hey, I want to come down. Hey, I want to come. Hey, but I want to come. Hey, but I want to come. William! Oh. Den malembe. Den jag kan inte göra. Den hoj. Den malembe jätta. Ah, den jätta kodja. Den jag manuka bola. Den hoj. Den malembe jätta. yeto. Bede yeto gaga. Video. Majene gale to ba yeto majene.
Majene gale.
Majene galo.
Majene
Yeah, majene galo.
Majene galo.
Ngalanga ya.
Sabela kabu bela sabela kone kini kone madila wan tangalanga ya.
Oh, majene galo, jene biga tangalanga ya.
Majene gale.
Yeah, majene galo.
Majene galo.
Oh, majene galo.
Majene galo.
Ah, majene galo.
Majene gale.
Majene galo.
Majene galo.
Oh, majene galo.
Majene
Ah, tangalanga ya. Yes, tablike bobo. Tabla kono din kono madila wan tangalanga.
Majene galo.
Tangalanga.
Ya. Majene gale.
Yeah, majene galo.
Majene galo.
Yeto yeto.
Majene
Ah, jene ya.
sabela kabu bela sabela kone kini kone madila wan tangalanga ya.
Oh, majene galo. Tangalanga. Yabo.
Majene gale.
Yeah, majene galo.
Majene galo.
Oh, majene galo.
Majene galo.
Ah, nala ya.
Malem.
Male yeto.
Malem.
Male.
Malem.
Male.
Sabela kabu bela sabela kone madila wan tangalanga ya.
Oh, majene galo, galo matangalang.
Majene gale.
Yeah, majene galo.
Majene gale.
Yeah, majene galo. Majene galo, coba yetong. Yabo.
Sabela kabu bela sabela kone madila wan tangalanga ya.
Oh, majene galo, galo matangalang ya.
Majene galo malem.
Yeah, majene galo.
Majene galo.
Wow, majene galo.
Majene galo.
Ngalanga ya.
Malem.
Male yeto. Male monake.
Malem pang.
Male.
Majene gale.
Yeah, majene galo.
Majene galo.
Yeah, majene galo.
Majene galo.
Ah, tangalanga ya.
Sabela kabu sabela kone madila wan tangalanga ya. Majene galo.
Ah,
Madiama.
to, no, this can go back up there. You can keep it, you can keep it. Wow. It's what you call a hard act to follow. Okay, good evening, good night, everybody. I got a Melika dance, and that helped to bring back the memories. I have no slides to show, so I'm going to be doing straight reading. You had the benefit of Dr. Kirk's presentation, so all good. Feasting on the heritage, the centrality of food to ancestral veneration within the frame of kumina. This presentation has brought back memories of my days in the field and the visceral connection I felt then and now to what has to be a connection to my Bongo ancestors. Thank you, Port Morant Kumina Group. A couple other things also immediately made a connection with me in the title of this session, which I wish to begin commenting on here. By way of putting in context the meat, pardon the pun, of my offering on the matter of the food offered to the ancestors, first from the title, Feasting on the Heritage. There is so much of the heritage to feast on that has been unearthed and documented and preserved to date, even in spite of much which has been lost, some of which is being presented here in this afternoon's session within the framework of Kumina. Going forward, though, the challenge is how to make it attractive and accessible to a wider and younger audience in the face of today's virtual technological reality, as well as having entertaining heritage spaces that will entice all age groups to attend and participate. The other area in this session title is the centrality of food to ancestral veneration. The food here in the Kumina context references the table that is set for the ancestors to entice them, for them to participate of and enjoy, and for them to respond accordingly to any special requests that might be made of them. Importantly, the food table that is set in the Kumina context is a ground table, traditionally. Usually that's the case, with occasional combined exceptions with a high table as this here. For example, I saw such a thing at a Kumina wedding that I once attended somewhere in the 80s. If time allows, I would love to describe it, because some of what is here and some of what is possible to be on the table and how it is used and how it's broken down and gets to the heart of the Kumina session itself is described. To note, the food set on the table includes not only chewable items and liquid components, as well as other ritual paraphernalia, which is indicated below. Also included in the food for the soul, literally for the spirit of the ancestors, and that is the music and dance. No Kumina table is complete without these components: solids, liquids, other ritual paraphernalia, and music and dance, referred to as the inkizi or keys to unlock and release spiritual powers. This session's title also speaks to ancestral veneration, which is not only reverential, but also practical. Hence the nature of the Kumina table described above and to be described in even more detail below. Ancestral veneration is meant to address the complete package of interaction with the ancestors, that is, the saltwater Bongo, those born in Africa, as well as the Creole Bongo, those born in Jamaica. Of note, some of the food set on the table may be targeted to the specific preferences of the ancestor being enticed on any given occasion when they were alive. Now is a good time to interject two other contextual points. At first, not all Kumina session or plays invoke the deliberate invocation of the ancestors or living dead and spirit possession, which is the country or business kind of Kumina. The other type of kumina is recreational, primarily for the pleasure of the living, Creoling bongo and visitors, the public. That's the Bailo kumina. Such an event basically took place here. In fact, in this kind of kumina play, possession is discouraged because it's not the objective of what they are trying to do. It's to entertain, it's to give pleasure to themselves and to the people who are participating, either as observers or like some of us who join them at a later date. The second point is that the ancestors targeted at a kumina play are the Nkuya, or God-infused spirits of the Bongo Congo ancestors. Suffice to say here that the spirit of the dead must first go to the omnipotent creator God, King Zambi or Zambi Mpungo, to be purified as appropriate before they can return as the Nkuya and being accessible to the living. Unwelcome spirits are ceremoniously rejected at the start of each session. For example, you will see when the kumina leader by the drums, you'll see them anoint the drums. You saw a lot of white rum being used here. White rum is a powerful, clear medium. A medium, water, rum, white rum, cream soda. These are clear liquids. Cream soda is sweet, and ancestors like sweet things. So you have, as part of the food, sweet things that are available. You will see that this is a medium through which the ancestors in Kuya will travel, and it's important to have those kinds of liquids, drinks available. Plain water, medium, and the barrier between the living and the living dead. And this is the point of transition. So enough. I saw a lot of what I think was not only rum, but water being sprinkled generously. Was I correct? There we go. Now to the meat of where and what's on the table. The center pole of the kumina booth, which is of singular importance. Now, we're clearly not operating in that environment. It's not a permanent space. This is a temporary setup. So I'm speaking to what would pertain in a more permanent kind of space. Is of singular importance, is elaborately dressed in accordance with the purpose of the kumina play. The pole, appropriately wrapped in cloth of special colors, and at whose base the kumina table is set, harnesses the vital life force of the earth and makes them available to the skilled and gifted kumina ritual specialists. The table consists of inkizi, or keys, which I referenced before, of ritual paraphernalia, which includes not only food and drinks for the ancestor, or the Nkuya, but also powerful weeds like the crotons, which you see on the table there. And of course, the drums, support instruments, that's the shaka and the greater, and the musicians, the lead singers and dancers, and ritual specialists, who are all concentrated in that central area. The actual food may include dry coconut or candy, K-A-N-D-I, not C-A-N-D-Y. Sugar and water, or swigidi langu. Sweet drinks are favored by the ancestors. Rice. Rice and coconut are fed to the spirits to appease them and to encourage their departure as necessary. Water, the medium of the living and of the living dead. I made reference to that earlier. White rum, a clear liquid, a more powerful force or medium for the Nkuya. Cream soda, another clear liquid, and it is sweet. Lime, especially when sucked, is felt to be a deterrent to possession. Other food which may also be on the ground table are other types of soft drinks, wine or any other alcoholic drink known to be, especially those that are known to be the favorite of an anticipated Nkuya visitor. In addition, other inkizi of significance on the ground table may include iron, a machete. The machete is a more powerful and dangerous agent and is employed to duel with a spirit who is perceived also to be carrying a machete. Now, a machete is a kind of a symbol, literally and otherwise, of something that is powerful, strong, and dangerous in terms of afflicting injury. Matchings or kitchen bitch. We had that here on display. This was being carried on the head. Imogene Kennedy was famous for using that on, during her dancing, etc. A lit match or bitch and the use of a machete are considered powerful keys of protection against and dismissal of troublesome spirits. A lit match or bitch passed around the head and body of the possessed is believed to aid in controlling and dismissing the spirit as necessary. An example of this, and I'm again making reference to it, was evidenced by Queenie of Sligoville, who was often seen balancing a kitchen bitch on her head as she danced. Other inkisi or keys to note on the ground table are candles. We have lots of them here. Not hearing me so well. Oh, yes, that's better. Okay. Candles. Colors of cloth and the corresponding colors of the candles are significant to the purpose, in identifying the purpose of the kumina play. I'm going to just describe some common color combinations and their meanings. For example, green and white, or less frequently blue, yellow, or red and white, is celebration, peace, love, and thanksgiving. I'm just noticing we did have white candles. The red tablecloth kind of dominated, but yes, red and white in celebration, peace, love, and thanksgiving. Black, judgment, death, and danger. Black and any combination of color to counteract evil. Red, aggression, judgment, and infers the settling of a score. White, peace, forgiveness. Black and white, a mourning, death, and peace. Yellow, black, and green, upliftment. Blood, which my good colleague here spoke about, the life force invoked through the animal sacrifices. And it's a life force, and this is what he described as what would allow the sick to be able to be revived and to get up and to be able to move around and to be revitalized. Weeds or plants like the Jeremiah croton. This is not a Jeremiah croton, but crotons generally are considered part of the spiritual plants that would be used. The Jeremiah croton is a little wriggly fine ones that you'll see at burial sites and in some people's yards. I don't think they know what it signifies necessarily. The leaf of life, there are actually botanical terms here, and I don't want to cuss any bad words, so I'm not going to try to describe them. These inkisi collectively function to invoke, make requests, feed and refresh the spirits, to control them, to cut evil or destruction, to heal, and to transmit the power to the living. Importantly, the ground table or the high table, whichever it is, can only be effective when the enkuya have been enticed to participate through song, music, and dance. The music and dance in kumina are the most crucial communicative and manipulative media between the living and the living dead, the ancestors, the enkuya. Now, I said if I had time, and I don't know if I do, I would describe this kumina wedding. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. It shouldn't take longer than that. Okay, so on certain occasions, like a wedding, or with reference to a particular leader, Queenie, for example, a high table I mentioned, which is here more specific to revival than kumina, may also be set. The ground table directed specifically at the ground spirits, as in kumina groups, would be partially set under the high table and would include at least the drums and a candle. I notice a candle is under there. Drums can't really hold and be played, but okay. At a kumina wedding observed in Seaford, St. Thomas in August 1983, the high table was constructed of 4 wide wooden horses. In other words, they were just locked into the side and could be removed at the corners. Firmly nailed to the center pole for further support. A white tablecloth was spread to receive a variety of food and other items appropriate to the occasion, some of which you are seeing on this table. Green and white candles were used. Small glasses, a gallon bottle of red label wine, 2 showbreads, a large hardo type bread, which is the bread, in this case a round bread baked in an intricately knotted pattern, a vase with crotons, and the highlight of the setting, 2 wedding cakes, a main cake and a side cake. The main cake was iced in white, etc., etc. before the breaking of the table, at which time the contents of the table were distributed among the guests. The table and its offerings were covered by a thick cotton white cloth. Beneath the high table, a partial ground table was laid to include 2 candles, green and white, at the east and west respectively. Those locations are very critical to the setting of any kumina table. A plain cast and 2 bamboo drums placed on either side of the center pole, again east and west respectively. The setting of the ground table was completed after the guests had been offered cake, bread, and drink, and the high table dismantled and removed. Some items were placed on the dotti or the ground, and others on a small low table like a stool, but were all concentrated around the center pole. And the items included 1 bottle of white rum placed against the center pole, 2 candles, green and white, 4 jars of Jeremiah croton and wild plantain flowers, that's the heliconia, 2 of which were later removed and placed on a stool-like table, 2 kibandu drums and 2 plain cast drums, a low stool placed behind one of the kibandu drums on which the kata-stick player was seated, another stool on which a lead singer and greater player alternately sat, sugar and water in a big enamel mug covered with a plate, and a big pail filled with drinking water. The items on the low table, which were also covered by a white cloth, were bottles of liquor, blackberry brandy, red label wine transferred from the high table after it was dismantled, vermouth, and white rum. In addition, there was also a red syrup-like mixture, the jars of croton. These items, particularly the white rum, not only provide refreshment for the living and the living dead and create the environment of continuity and contiguity between this and the other world, but are also used to appease and control the spirits, the ancestors. I thank you.
Questions now and then just finish up. We will take 10 minutes of questions and or comments. And then the Port Moran Kumina group will take over until them stop taking over. Questions or comments? Visitors and friends? Sisters and brothers? I want to ask the group 2 questions. I don't know who will respond. You allowed us to see you setting up the table. You can explain that for us, why you allow that today. And secondly, the direction of the table. Can you explain the direction of the table for us, please?
Malembe? Yes, the direction of the tables is because the placement of the place. We'll have to place it east-west, north and south. Any more question, please?
There's another question.
Normally allow persons to watch your setting up.
Okay.
Permitted us today.
Malem, everybody. Malem. 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 All right, tonight we are here. It's like an experience for you guys to see how we set the table. The reason for that is for you to understand how a kumina table is being set, or an example of how a kumina table is being set when we're doing a table. So that's the reason why we do it in a form where everybody could experience or can see what we are doing live and how we do it. So you can have an understanding of what is taking place and what we're about to do and what we use and what it requires and what it entails to do a table. So that's the reason why we do it so open so everybody could see.
Can see what we do.
Thank you very much. I'm going to put my sister Lanternette on the spot. Lanternette Steins, would you come over here, please? Because I'm going to tell a story that you might not even remember. About 15 years ago, Lanternette Steins came back from a cultural conference somewhere in the world, and she was very upset. Someone who had spent 3 weeks in Jamaica was presenting a paper on kumina. You remember it? Yes. And the person began by placing kumina, the word kumina, into the context of the Jamaican language. For that person, it was understood that a kumina session was open to anybody. So once you heard a kumina session was taking place, you could go home and dress, stop by the kumina yard and kumina. And I say, Lanternette, I better you than me, for me do not have a diplomatic face, and me would have to tell them something. You remember that? But Lanternette has done extensive research into the meaning of kumina, and so I'm putting her on the spot to just explain the word. It does not mean go beard and kumina.
I have to go a little further. This woman was presenting her PhD thesis on kumina. And she said, kumina, that's the first thing. I wasn't the only one there. There were some scholars from Edna Manley there with us at a conference in Miami. And I remember a woman I loved dearly, Barbara Redcore, taking a scarf and pushing it in her mouth so she wouldn't laugh too loud. Because the woman said, and she was laughing because she went to a kumina duty. And the people were laughing at the woman and speaking in Kakombo and calling her Mundungu. And that she don't know what it means, so she thinks it's a wonderful thing you're saying. So the whole presentation was hilarious. And this was her PhD thesis from... Now the problem is, a lot of cultural people doing PhDs out in foreign, they don't have anybody marking the paper that know anything. Them looking for the semicolons, the commas. And they're looking for where your literature review. And once that literature review is a diva literature, anything else in it, them don't matter. But it is like this little girl who said she's going to write her paper on voodoo for her CAPE exam. And she said, I'm going to write it on that because the teacher don't know what it is. So as long as I do the comma them and the semicolon right, I go get it right. I go get her A. So she just writes. Look, whatever she think, but most of it, so now, kumina, I'm going to need the help because I did a lot of research and there are so many words, kumino, meaning meter, rhythm, and timing. But my colleague, the lady who I always have great respect for, Miss Ryman, she also speaks about the word kalunga relative to kumina, and the kalunga is, the kumina cosmogram, is round and they're just line in the middle. And Kalunga is the line from when you die and how the path between death and where you're going to go. There's a path. There's a way you go through. And the Kalunga line is also part of the Kumina space. And so in my research, I have a whole heap of words that relate back to Kumina. Kumino is the Kumino. Also, kumumu, all other words, but none of them mean coming here. None of them.
Thank you very much. And true being as how you call up the word that Cheryl researched, can we give Cheryl 2 minutes just to connect? What's the word?
Kalunga. My
Kalunga,
sister
Kalunga.
was called Kalunga.
Please come.
And there's Kumika, yes.
Everybody want to hear you.
Again, it's coming like the botanical names. I don't want to chat foolishness. I do not have those notes. When I was preparing with the food thing, I came across it. And the three possible sources that I had found, and this is from other researchers who had done a lot of work, and one was a linguist, and suggested that Kumeka, which I'm trying to remember now what it specifically aligned to, because each of the words Kalunga, Kadunga, and Kumeka refers to certain aspects of the overall kumina dance movement. And Kumeka was the one that was suggested as the closest to giving us the word kumina. I don't have those notes with me. I would have referred to them and read them very eloquently. But I know those are the three possible sources, Kumeka being the closest.
We're so thankful to the ancestors. We're so thankful to you for having joined us. We're so sorry that more of our students are not here, because this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be so close to an authentic setting. As Cheryl pointed out, what's missing is the center pole, but the center pole is permanent, and so we would not have planted the pole in the yard. Him, him. So thank you very much. We're going to hand over now to our sisters and brothers from the Port Morant Kumina group so they can talk to the spirits who... Did you see how the spirits wouldn't make us proceed early on this evening? Because we did displace them. And them come and tell me, say, me, the spirit I go beat them, and then the spirit, them I go beat me. For me should have did know better than to make them come here and certain things was not there. So me had to go and beg them pardon, so them could have begged the ancestors pardon on my behalf. Thank you so very much.
Oh, Mama Dilla, ameganga home. Come, Mama Dilla, amegande ma. Yeah, ganga. Oh, oh, Lord, if I had known oh, Lord, if I had known, oh Lord, if I had known, if I had known, if I had known, I would pray. Oh Lord, I had not, I would pray. Oh, Lord, if I had known. Oh, Lord, if I had known, if I had known, if I had known, I would pray.
my pouch. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I got caught up in the ceremony and in learning the steps and all the information. And it slipped me that we are supposed to say thanks to the presenters. So let the ancestors record that we said thanks to Dr. Henry. Dr. Henry, where are you, please? All right, please, thank you. And let the ancestors record that we say thanks to Cheryl. Cheryl, please come. Adoma, Ivy, I'm so sorry. Forgive me. On behalf of all of us gathered here, we're so grateful that you consented to come all the way from country, and you go back home tonight, you know, to come and share your wisdom and your knowledge with us. We tried to find something that you could identify with, and I'm asked to let you know that the food which has been prepared for you is in a room opposite to where you changed, and whenever you're ready, because I know you will go when you're ready. Forgive me, please continue.
Oh, Bamberi do Bako. Ah, Bamberi do Bako. Ah, you hear the do Bako. Ah, oh, Bamberi do Bako. Ah, Bamberi do Bako. Ah, we hear the do Bako. Ah, we hear the do Bako. Oh, pick up, oh, Bamberi do Bako. Ah, Bamberi do Bako. Oh, ah, we hear the do Bako. Ah, we hear the do Bako. Oh, Bamberi do Bako. Ah, Bamberi do Bako. Oh, ho, 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 we hear the do Bako. Oh, ho, ho, we hear the do Bako. Ah, Bamberi do Bako. Ah, Bamberi do Bako. Oh, Bamberi do Bako.
All right. The table is broken, and you're invited to dance around with the kumina group. And if you would like to partake of any of the fruits, either on the spot or to take it away, we now have permission.
The hard way I did over.